All right, good morning. Welcome to the Weston High School PTO May General Board meeting. We're going to kick off this morning with our guest speaker, Brandon from Challenge Success. We're very excited to have him here presenting today. And for the sake of time and having time to do our business after, we're going to jump right into Brandon's presentation. Welcome him. And good morning, Brandon. Thank you for coming today.
Good
So can I
morning,
give some
everyone. It's a pleasure.
Yes.
Dr. Wiley's here, and he has been working with us all year as our coach from the Challenge Success organization. So thank you, Brandon, for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Well, I'm going to share a few slides here today, if that's okay. Let's see. I know tonight we have a special presentation we're doing for the community about the work we're doing. I thought I would give the PTO a little bit of a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about this evening, but I don't want to give you too much because I don't want to cause you to not join us tonight, but I'm sure you'll be there. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to partner with Weston High School in their efforts to really better understand the lived experience of students and faculty and staff of the school. And I just want to talk you through a little bit about what we've learned this year and some of the progress that the school's made. It's really quite impressive, the depth of the conversations, the things that we've been learning, and I think the exciting work to be done in the coming school year. So just quickly, a little bit about myself. I'm Brandon Wiley, and I'm actually located in Las Vegas, Nevada, so it's a little earlier here. But my day job actually is working as a chief academic officer of a pre-K through grade 8 school here in Las Vegas, an independent school. And I work with Challenge Success part-time because we've been a partner of the Challenge Success since 2017 as a school. So I've lived it as a school leader, and now as a coach, as a school partnership coach, I'm able to work with schools primarily on the East Coast. I'm working with 3 schools in Connecticut, one in New York, and one in Taiwan, interestingly. So my experience has been both as a practitioner doing this work, but as well as a coach trying to help schools think more deeply again about what their kids are experiencing. For those who aren't familiar, Challenge Success is a nonprofit organization that's been around for a little over 20 years. We're based at Stanford University in California. And really, since its inception, Challenge Success has been focused on, really again, trying to elevate student voice and implementing research-based equity-centered strategies to focus primarily on students' well-being, belonging, and engagement. And the reason we've really zeroed in on these 3 things is that we know that for students to be successful academically, these 3 outcomes, these 3 indicators of their success are underlying, what we want for them in life as well as in academics. So we have been doing the research around what is it that what are the things that schools can do to ensure kids are well, to ensure that they have a sense of belonging, and to ensure that they're engaged in the learning that they're doing. And so, I thought we might start by just kind of going around the room for those of you who are on the call and just sharing, for you, what is it, as you think about your children, if you think a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now as adults, in their lives, if Weston High School does their job, what are the things you want students to be able to do and be as people? In other words, how do you define success? And I'll just open it up to anyone who might want to share for you, like what does success for your child look like?
I suppose I can start off. Essentially, success would look like young people who are able to support themselves and find joy in their lives and balance. Just want them to be able to grow up and take care of themselves and be happy people. Yeah, when happiness is available, it's life's up and has its ups and downs, but want them to be able to navigate them and take care of themselves.
I would say, I think reaching their potential. That's always a big marker of success for me. Someone that can have an environment where they can reach their potential.
I would also agree with Christine in mentioning the independence factor for children, as well as happiness and love and support.
I agree.
Yeah, so I'm hearing things, happiness, reaching their potential, well-adjusted, taking care of themselves, love, support, independence, right? These are all things that we aspire to make sure that our kids have and are able to do. What I didn't hear in your response were high test scores, high rankings, Ivy League college, right? And so what I think we learn, when we talk with families, is that these are the types of things they say. They want to have, deep love. They want to be passionate about the work that they do, that they're stable, right? And they can contribute to their communities. But unfortunately, I'm gonna skip ahead here. One of the things that we learn is that, society places values on a lot of other things, right? In terms of high grades, prestigious colleges, high income. And so we send this mixed message to our kids about like what success and happiness in life looks like. And yet we are, exposing them to a world in which other things are valued just as equally, if not more. And sometimes what that happens, it comes at the expense of their sense of wellness and self-value and worth. I can think of adults actually that I've spoken to recently who are still, like as adults, struggling to know what their purpose in life is and what's going to really make them happy. And it's unfortunate that as a younger age, we can't expose kids to understanding what they're passionate about, understanding where they can make, be gamefully employed doing something that they deeply care and love about instead of what might sometimes be referred to as the rat race. So this disconnect is something that we try to better understand in schools and help communities think reflectively about, okay, how can we shift some of the pressure and stress away from the things that we know don't serve kids to the things that we think will? For many of our students, what they've learned is that, starting in middle school, they think of this like direct line of what success is going to look like. I'm going to go to middle school. I'm going to do a good job in middle school. That's where we kind of start to take some of the joy out of the learning in some places, right? But then I get to high school and I got to really, really, really focus on my grades so that I can get into a prestigious university, so that I can get a high paying job and that I'm successful, or so I think. But what we're learning is that students do go to these prestigious universities sometimes. They don't find the joy and passion. They don't find the job of their choice. And that is how they define their success, right? So the reality is, many of them, this is what it looks like. It's not a linear line, right? Increasingly, what we're seeing is that people are making their way in a lot of different ways. Sometimes they're choosing higher education, sometimes they're not. They're going directly to the workforce, they're joining the military. There's different ways, different paths for different students. And in fact, like if you think of your own, I'm just curious in this group, and I won't ask you to share this, but like my every time I've done this with groups, what I realize is that some of them, yes, it is a linear progression. Mine was pretty linear for a certain extent. I went to school, I became a teacher, eventually I became an administrator. I was on sort of that linear route. And then all of a sudden, something happened in my mid 30s where my life went in a lot of different directions professionally, still around education, but there's a whole world open to me that I wasn't, familiar with. So I think for our kids, we just want the possibility and the opportunities to unfold before them in ways that they may not expect, right? So again, it's not about like doing this thing to that thing to that thing in A. It's really more about finding your path. And for each of you, your path might look something like one of these, right? And the truth is, we want to help kids map out the things they can and also understand that there might be some things that are out of their control. So again, as an organization, we're really focused on how do we look at the connectivity between belonging, well-being, and engagement. These things are intrinsically connected. So in other words, if students are not well emotionally, physically, mentally, they're not going to achieve academically to the extent we want them to. Similarly, if they go into a school where they don't have a strong sense of belonging, they don't see other kids who look like them, think like them, welcome them, they are not going to achieve at their highest potential. And if the learning isn't engaging and purposeful for them, they're also going to check out, which we're going to talk a little bit about this morning. So, as a school team, we have a challenge success team that is made up of parents, students, and faculty members. We've met many times over the course of the school year to really, again, better understand what's happening in Weston High School and to map out some possible ways to, move the needle on some of these metrics. So in the beginning, sort of phase one, a team of faculty members came to Bentley College in Massachusetts for a fall retreat. We had our initial team meeting where we came together and sort of formed as a group. The next sort of phase, the engage phase, we had meetings. We meet virtually like this very often. We also gave surveys. We gave student surveys as well as family community surveys and faculty, student, and community. And we debriefed a lot of data. We looked at a lot of data about what people were saying about Weston High School, what's working, what's not working, how are kids experiencing it. And because the data doesn't tell us everything, we then engaged in some things called listening in protocols, where we tried to understand a little bit more about students' experience. And we're sort of, going forward then in February, I came out to the school, did a professional development day for the faculty around engagement to help them be more reflective about their practice. We did a presentation to the Weston Curriculum Subcommittee. And then again, we continued with our meeting. So a lot of work has been done this year. And then now we're sort of at this last phase, for this year at least, around like how do we look at different things to try, right? Our goal is to move to action. We don't want to just sit in any discomfort, or we want to move. We want to make things better. We don't have much time with these kids. We want to make sure that every day we're a little bit better than we were the day before. So the school is trying some different things, whether it's around changing the midterm schedule, continuing to do these listening in protocols, visiting other schools, so that going into next year, some changes can be made potentially to improve students' experience. The big part of our work, and this again just sort of gives you an overview of all the different meetings we've had. We've met starting in September all the way through to the spring. And so the biggest focus of our work, though, has been on looking at the student survey data, which I'm going to share a little sneak peek today, this morning, of some of that data. The idea here is that we've now surveyed over 350,000 middle and high school students across 500 high schools and middle schools in the United States and abroad. And what we're looking for are themes around, how are kids doing, nationally, internationally, what is happening with our kids? And particularly since COVID and the pandemic, we've really been very focused on the mental and physical wellness of our kids, as we're seeing some of those metrics go in a direction that are not very healthy. On the survey, though, we ask questions about things like academic engagement, their physical and mental health, how much homework they have and how that's working, what worries them academically, and really just trying to get a better sense of what's going on sort of in their minds and hearts as it relates to school. So I'm just going to kind of go through the three big areas very quickly and just give you 2 or 3 data points specifically to Weston, and then I'll talk about how those data points relate to the numbers nationally. So first of all, student well-being. Again, our goal is to make sure that students are well physically, mentally, and emotionally, and that if they aren't feeling well, they have strategies that they can employ to make sure that they can get help to be better. And I'm going to start with some kind of stark data. 87% of your high school students reported that in the month preceding the survey, they experienced at least one stress-related health symptom. So basically what that means is that in the month before they took the survey, they felt ill because of the stress that they were feeling, and they weren't necessarily able to deal with it in a healthy way. So this included things like exhaustion, difficulty sleeping, and headaches. And this was about 7% higher than the 2-year. We take a 2-year rolling average around the country of the schools who participate in the survey. And this is about 7% higher than what we've seen at many other high schools. So again, the question we want to ask a lot of questions about this data, right, to better understand it. Like, what is causing kid stress? Why are they getting so stressed that they're feeling a physical ailment as a result of that? And what are the coping skills or strategies that they might employ to help them de-escalate some of those stressors? So another one of the questions then that we asked is like, what are your major sources of stress? And not surprisingly, this data very much, I think, correlates to what we typically see in high schools, that kids are stressed out by their grades, tests, quizzes, finals, and other assessments. Again, we can dig into that even further to say, what is it about these things? Is it that there are too many tests and quizzes, too many assessments? Is it that they're like stacked up on top of each other, so there's multiple tests on one day? Is it that the teachers are maybe not as clear as they could be about what's going to be assessed? And then the grades, what is it about the grades that are stressing them out? The second leading stressor was overall workload and homework. And then that's followed by lack of sleep and procrastination or time management. Interestingly, 52% of the kids said their future plans is something that is worrying them. So again, these are not atypical of what we see in many high schools. The question we want to ask, though, is is there anything we can do to lower sort of the stress levels in some of these areas? Stress on the surface is not a bad thing necessarily. It's when it leads to maladaptive behaviors or choices that kids make, like procrastination, like skipping school, like other risky behavior, alcohol use, drug use, right? We see for some kids that becomes a trigger for them to move into those behaviors. For others, they get sick, they withdraw, they don't deal with stress well. So again, part of our job as a school is to kind of better understand what are those stressors, how can we mitigate some of those stress, and also understand that sometimes stress can be a good thing. It can be a motivator. It can help focus kids. But we just want to make sure that it stays in a healthy balance. And then the last one that I'll show on this one, again, I don't want to give you all the headlines for tonight. There's a few other cool nuggets I'll share tonight, but sleep is another major indicator of student wellness, right? On average, the National Pediatrics Doctors Associations, everyone says kids need more sleep. On average, high school students should be getting about 9 hours of sleep a night. Weston high school students reported getting about 6.8 hours. Keep in mind, that's the average. So you have some kids at your school getting as little as 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night. And then you have some kids on the other end that were getting like 10 and 11 hours. I'm not sure how they're doing that, but they're getting more than enough sleep. But on average, I would say sleep is an area we really want to focus on going forward. And one of the questions we ask is, where do you keep your phone at night, right? Because what we're seeing is that technology is becoming an even bigger, distraction. And so 84% of your kids say that they sleep with their phone in their room. What we encourage is for families to think about how do we move the technology out of the rooms and actually put it, like charge it in the kitchen, in the dining room, somewhere other than where the kids, because what happens is they stay up. They stay up scrolling, they stay up texting each other. Students shared when I was on campus, yeah, like sometimes I'm on till midnight just for no good reason other than I have other friends online and I'm able to chat with them. Like we just want to help kids make better choices about how they're using their time. So I'm just going to hit a pause button there and see if there's any questions about sort of this area of well-being before I go on to belonging.
We have a question.
Have
Okay.
any schools changed their start time as a result of this?
Yes.
Student
Whoops.
sleep study data?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to show you a little later the different areas that schools kind of play around. Schedule is definitely one of them. So some schools will either, move their start time to a later time to allow for a little more sleep. Some schools can't do that like year round, but they might do a couple late starts during the school year, or at least pilot a couple late starts. But yes, master schedule is one of the number one things that schools end up looking at because your schedule demonstrates what you value. So if you value, giving kids spaciousness in their day, you can design for that and still meet the academic outcomes. So yes, the answer is yes. I'm going to keep moving, but we can always come back to these for sure. And tonight I'm going to give you some other data points around things like homework load and what kids are reporting in terms of other things that are causing them stress. So in the sense of belonging, again, the idea here is that students, come into a school where they are seen, valued, loved, and feel safe. So one of the questions that we ask is around, if you did have a problem, do you have a trusted adult that you can go to? And 73% of your students said that there's at least one adult in school that they feel comfortable that they would go to. That's a little bit lower than the national rate. Typically, we see in the high 70s to low 80s for high school, right? So that's something we've been talking about and looking at as a team. But they also reported that 86% of them said that they have at least one other student to go to. So again, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're putting conditions in place that students feel that they have, again, people they can go to. Over half of the students identified the school counselor or other related staff as the people to go to, which is great because what that means is they're seeing those individuals as the people, that they can trust and go to. I would argue, though, that we want to increase that sort of cconnectivity that students have. I say to myself, well, 73 is good. And what's happening with those other 27% of students? Why do they not feel a certain sense of connection within the school? So we ask questions, people sometimes will say, well, what do you say? Do you say like, do you belong at your school? We don't ask, do you feel belonging? Do you feel engagement? Do you feel well? We ask questions about the extent to which they experience things, and then that helps give us some metrics around the extent to which they feel these three outcomes. So for example, we ask questions around teacher support to help us better understand belonging. So questions like teachers treat students with respect, and they get to rate on a sort of a scale of to the extent to which they feel teachers do these things. So I just highlighted students, 78% of your students said all or a lot of my teachers treat students with respect. 69% said all or a lot help students with homework, et cetera. And you can see some of the other questions that we ask here. I think what's also important to know is when we collect this data, we can break it down in a lot of different ways. We can break it down by grade level. We can break it down by other identifiable metrics like race, gender, et cetera, to kind of better understand what are the experiences of subgroups within the school, right? We don't want to just paint this broad brush of all students. We really want to understand, are there certain groups who are feeling especially supported or not supported. So I just gave you a few examples on this slide of sort of where some of those subgroup data points fell. The school has a very robust dashboard that they can go in and actually kind of disaggregate this data in a variety of ways. Again, with the goal of just better understanding what kids are feeling and experiencing. Another set of questions around belonging. 49% of your students said that they completely or quite believe that they're accepted at the school, and they said completely or quite true. I share this one with you to show that we have some kiddos who are not really feeling as strongly about their connection as we would like them to, right? So when you look at things like sometimes I feel like I don't belong at the school, 23% of your kids said completely or quite true, right? So my question, our question has been like, who are those kids? How do we better identify them? How do we give them a stronger sense of belonging, right? Other students like me the way I am, only 44% said completely or quite true. So what that would suggest perhaps is that there are some kids going through their day that for one reason or another are feeling sort of disconnected from their colleagues and peers. Now, I just want to say there's a lot to celebrate in this data, but there's always room for growth as well. So we're looking for both the bright spots as well as the areas for growth when we look at this data. And I think that's what's been so awesome about the team is that they're really being very strategic about saying like, what are the things that we're doing well that we want to grow? And what are the things that we want to address because, quite frankly, it's just to their standard, not good enough. And I think this is an area that we've been spending some time looking at and talking about. All right, I'm gonna stop there and see if there's any questions about belonging before I move on. And for those of you who are able to join us tonight, the way I'll be sharing this data is somewhat similar, but we will be stopping and putting folks in breakout rooms to have some discussion. So we want to keep tonight's session as interactive as possible, but also be honest and saying like there's just a lot of data that we want to share. And so sometimes that can be a little boring. So if you had advice for me on how I can do it differently or better, I'm open to that this morning. But there will be an opportunity for families that do join us to be in conversation with each other about, what they're reacting to and seeing in the data. And I'll certainly hold time for questions as well. So I'm going to just go ahead for engagement just for the sake of time. So one of the things that we collect information on, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this tonight, is how connected kids feel to the learning that's happening in the classroom. And in many cases, this is very much something the faculty has control over in terms of the curriculum, the way they instruct. And so we kind of bucket students into different categories based on their responses. As you can imagine, right, we probably all understand this idea of disengagement. These are students who do not find real value in what they're learning. They're not doing what we're asking them to do in some cases, and they're really just struggling to keep up with what we're doing as a school, right, academically. We look at engagement on three levels: affective, behavioral, and cognitive. So we call this the ABCs of engagement. The affective basically means that students see the value and the purpose in the learning. They find joy in it. It's fun. And they can apply what they're learning to the real world or what they think is the real world. The behavioral is that they do what we ask them to do, right? So they turn in their homework. They're on top of things. They're engaged. right? And your kids scored very high in the behavioral. Kids are doing what they're asked to do at Weston. But then the cognitive is also sort of related to, are they cognitively challenged appropriately at the level that they're at? Again, do they find purpose and value in the work? So we use that metric then to say, where are kids? Kids who are checking the boxes of all three, affective, behavioral, and cognitive, are what we would call fully engaged. They are really locked in all of the three of those areas. For kids who are checking the box perhaps for behavioral and affective, or behavioral and cognitive, are purposefully engaged. And then the last group is like kids who are just behaviorally engaged. They're what we would call doing school. These are kids who come in, do what they're supposed to do. They might not find much interest or value in what they're learning. Sometimes they're connected, or maybe there's a certain class, for example, that they love. Like think about your kids. What classes do they come home and talk about? Those are typically the classes that they're highly engaged in. They find purpose and value to those classes. Increasingly, what we're seeing around the country, though, is that there's a lot of kids just doing school. They're showing up, they're doing what they're asked to do, they're kind of going through the motions, and they're not finding the value or making connection to some of the content. So when I came to work with the faculty in February, we looked very deeply at this data and started thinking about how can you make your class purposeful, engaging, and frankly, just not have kids sitting there being passive recipients of information. And so again, more work to be done there, but I think this raised awareness that we want to think about engagement as not just kids sitting quietly in your classroom or doing what you ask them to do. We want them to engage more purposefully as well. Any questions on this one? I know this one's a little bit tricky maybe to understand and maybe not.
I guess I have a question. How does one approach teachers who may be accustomed, how do you support teachers who are more accustomed to a less interactive style of teaching, and what can be done to help support them to become more interactive or encourage their kids to become more interactive?
Yeah, great question. We start small. I think part of what we want to be clear about is we're not like throwing out the curriculum and starting from scratch. We're not telling you that you're a bad teacher. We're starting from a position of saying, here are the different ways you can engage students. And this is part of what the workshop was that I did when I was on campus. Here are a variety of ways you can engage students. And here's what research says increases their engagement in class. Pick one thing that you think you could do a different or better job with and start there. And perhaps Megan can talk about like what's happened subsequent to February. But at least in that session, we're really trying to help them think about like what's one thing that they could update or replace in what they do. And the idea then is that over time, we continually gradually like sort of like the dial, turn the dial to try to do more and more of those things. Now, some faculty were super jazzed. I had teachers come up to be like, oh, I got 3 or 4. Can I do all 3 or 4? I'm like, have at it. You can do 3 or 4. But just starting with one, I think makes the barrier for teachers who are a little less, open or reticent. It's not asking a lot of them. And sometimes even just one new strategy will do more to increase student engagement. I'm not sure, Megan, if you'd like to talk about any other additional conversations you all have had about that.
Yeah, so Brandon also shared a really great kind of resource center that gave some tips and tricks for inspiring more student voice and engagement in the classroom. And so part of the work that we're doing in our evaluation and supervision of teachers is kind of the coaching method, right? Not to go in, as Brandon said, to say, you're doing this wrong and I want you to start doing this, but to really ask questions and say, if we flip this lesson a little, how could you maybe inspire more student voice in the lesson? Or empowering teachers to say, when I come in to a room, like I'm not looking to hear you, right? I'm really looking to hear students more. And sometimes it's just about giving permission, right? So sometimes we've had more traditional classrooms that we can all remember where you hear the teacher lecturing or kind of, giving the narration of history or science or whatever. And so how do we also give teachers permission to say, try this and I would love to come in and see you trying it. So like opening up the opportunity to take safe risks, right? And knowing that we're looking for that to pay off with the way students are engaged, they're interested, they're just general affect in the classroom. And so I'm seeing it happen. It doesn't happen overnight. But I'm seeing more teachers kind of invite us in and invite me in when they're saying, hey, I'm trying this thing, or we're doing this seminar. You're not going to see me, right? But I would love you to come in and hear what the kids are saying. I'm like, I would love to come in and I'm not coming in and ticking off like how many times you said something in a 56-minute period. What I really want to see is how the kids are interacting with the materials and the content and how they're engaging with each other. And so we're talking about like the different levels of questioning, right? Like how we can get kids to ask higher order questions of the topics that they're studying, and giving kids permission to ask. Maybe they're writing something, and a lot of times with 9th and 10th graders, we're sticking to more formulaic 5-paragraph essays. How are we opening that up and saying, you've kind of mastered this, now how can we expand it, like with other voices in your essay or other formats? So it's going to happen. It's starting to happen, and there are teachers that were absolutely have mastered this and we're doing it already, and then there are others. I just met with a teacher the other day, and he was like, that those thinking routines from Harvard and Project Zero, like those are really cool. Like I've been using more and more, and the kids, like it's changing my classroom. And so those are the things we want to see incrementally, and then it just becomes part of our culture.
I think that's so important, that piece about giving the kids permission, because I feel like in education, starting at the younger grades, they're talked at, they're tested on, they're told to sit there, be quiet, put your hand down, all these things. So that shift to speak up is big.
And COVID is not the thing to be blamed for everything,
right.
But the reality is kids, especially the kids that are coming into the high school during COVID, they were passive years when we didn't want kids to be passive. So really, like we have to make a pretty intentional effort to break them of that passive mindset, right? That I can come into class, I can show up and absorb, but not give back. And so we want to see them, giving back into the conversation and culture of each classroom.
Yeah, and I think thank you so much. That's super helpful and encouraging, because this isn't a one and done thing, right? Where, we'll give a survey, we learn something, and then we're going to be better tomorrow. Like this helps focus the work to be done. So for Megan and her team to be thinking about like, how are we giving teachers feedback about their practice? How do we get teachers to be reflective about their practice? How do we elevate student voice so that students can say like, this is working for me or this isn't working for me? And to your point, like for so long, they've been sort of a culture, just like be quiet, be seen. But we really want to like unleash that a little bit, so that kids do have a voice in sort of the lived experience. So, the big question that we'll kind of wrestle with a little bit tonight is it possible to have balance in today's high pressure culture? So kids are living in sort of this pressure cooker that we live in society. And as a school, we have some choices about how we can, again, lower the temperature. We want to prepare them for life beyond high school for sure, but also we can also protect them a little bit from some of the things that they don't have to deal with just yet, right? We as adults don't have much of a choice on some of these things, but we would argue that, 13 to 17, 18-year-olds do have some choice, and we can protect them. So part of tonight's presentation will also be me giving some strategies for families to think about at home, what you can do at home, because that is your sphere of influence. Meanwhile, you should know that there's a team at school now talking very deeply about what they can do at school to kind of sort of move the needle on this. And so, the last thing I'll talk about is just this idea. We have this thing called the space framework. And so to your earlier question about late start, for example, right, we look at a framework like this with the school to say, okay, what are the things that you can move, change, update, or get rid of in some cases that might help the experience of students and faculty and staff. So, around schedule, it's like how we use time makes a difference. So that might mean looking at your master schedule, the transitions between classes, how and when kids are taking exams, the homework load, which I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about tonight, pedagogy, the actual teaching, what can we do to engage kids more purposefully, and then focus on this idea of rigor, not load, right? So many families, I want my kid prepared, I want them to go to a great university or college, and I need to see more rigor from the school. But sometimes there's a false proxy between rigor and load being the amount of work you're doing. More is not always better. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight around homework. And then assessments, right? Like we have all been raised in this test-taking culture. But sometimes those paper and pencil tests aren't the best measure of what students actually know and are able to do. So they're not going away. So we still have to be aware that kids need to be able to take tests. But are there other ways we can collect evidence about student learning that actually gives you a better sense as a family about what your kiddo can do? Climate of care really focuses on what are the structures within the school that helps address these ideas of belonging and well-being, from advisory programs to having, mental health support within the school, you name it. Schools are doing a lot of interesting things to make sure that they're attending to those needs of students. And then the last is education for everyone. So like tonight's session is a good example about how do we bring families into the discussion so that they can be partners in the work and better understand what the work is doing. So every school chooses a different entry point. And sometimes they choose one thing to go deep on. Sometimes they'll choose 3 or 4 smaller things because sometimes just making these subtle shifts actually does make a big difference for more kids. And Megan, I'm not sure if either now or tonight you want to talk about sort of some of your thoughts for next year, but our hope is that we could continue this partnership. I think it's been really fruitful. And if we do continue it into next year, part of our job then is to help you start to implement some of these change ideas so that we can start to move the needle on some of these metrics. And while we wouldn't probably survey again next year, in the future, I would suggest surveying again. We can still do some like smaller pulse surveys and other ways to collect data about students' experience. But again, there's a predisposition to action. We want to put things in place, pilot things, try things to see if it makes a difference for kids. Let's stop there and see if folks have questions too.
And I'll say one of our areas it's kind of a big one, is that focus on grading and assessment. So looking at our practices around redos and revisions, also looking at kind of consistency across courses and departments. And so that will be our focus next year, which you can see from the student data. Like, I think the students are looking for that. And it helps to lower the temperature, I think, when we can be really clear about our expectations, and that students, I think the navigation, of our schedule can be tricky for kids. I'm not talking about changing the schedule, but if you can provide some of that consistency, then, they're not shifting. Like, okay, now I'm going to this class and okay, right, this is where the teacher puts assignments and this is the grading practice or policy in this room. So what are the things that we can universalize, whether it's the way we use PowerSchool, the way we use Canvas, and some of our practices around redos and revision and other things. So yeah, I think we've had a great year. I mean, I think, we had some really great work with Brandon when he came. Teachers really appreciated that workshop on engagement. I think it was, I would say one of the most highly rated workshop we've had certainly in my time here, and for teachers in recent years, because it provided practical strategies that they could turn around and use the next day. Right? Not that they're not going to go in and do all of it, as Brandon said, and some I had to kind of say that's awesome, right? And try a couple. Like don't overwhelm yourself feeling like a responsibility to do it all, because teachers want to do good. But I think that we've built a structure and a framework. And the other part of our goal, and NEASC in their visit just recently supported this, combining the work of our challenge success team and our school climate team, and now understanding like the work of challenge success and its positive influence on school climate, and how we can merge those two groups and really kind of set a course and really create a 3 to 5 year plan for some of the things that we want to tackle. So.
I mean, I have a question for you all as a group, real quick. I'm curious, are there other things that you think families would like to hear tonight, or that, I'm just curious what this brought up for each of you, in terms of things I could, emphasize or either explain differently or better.
Yeah, I think maybe just I know I've seen other challenge success presentations in the past. I think the practical home strategies are very helpful to help bring home what the parents can do to partner with this approach in the big picture. I asked the question about how teachers are supported because, I grew up in a, back in the day when we were spoken to and we were expected to sit and absorb and not engage. So I imagine there's, people of my generation who are teachers now who are accustomed to teaching that way too. So maybe just a little feedback on what you discussed here, how we support teachers to do that, because those are the things that came to my mind during today's talk. Because that's how I grew up, so, it sounds delightful having a new approach for our kids. But it's nice to hear what the strategy is to get there.
Great. Yep. Super helpful. Thank you. Well, tell 3 friends.
Parents often I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I think parents often ask about homework. That's just like, I think they may want to hear a bit more about how one finds that balance. I think we've all seen different times where it's just all consuming. Where kids aren't sitting at dinner at home because they're like, please just send me a plate because I'm going to be reading all night to get ready for all my exams this week. It's a hot topic, just for tonight.
Yeah. And I think how to help create space for students to like prioritize and do the work that needs to be done. I mean, the conversation with teachers is a little different. It's about quality over quantity, right? The research is actually super clear that more is not better, right? There is a point of diminishing return actually in terms of academic achievement if you have too much work. And then on top of that, I would imagine one of the topics that might come up tonight is, like our kids are over-programmed, meaning they're too busy. We're having them do too many things, whether it's clubs, athletics, volunteer work. Like and one of the strategies I'll share tonight is like sitting down with your child and mapping out in a given week, where and how are you spending your time, and how is that serving you, right? And not to say that kids shouldn't participate in extracurriculars, but when it gets to, again, a tipping point where it leads to unhealthy behaviors or what I call a loyalty conflict, where it's like, I can either do my homework or I can go to my sports practice. I can do this or I can do that. Like that puts undue pressure on kids who do not developmentally necessarily know how to navigate, prioritize those things. So how then as families can we sit down and say like, all right, what do we value? And how do we carve out some time for you just to be a kid and not have to worry about some of this stuff? So I will definitely talk about that tonight and just encourage families to, give you some tools to how to talk to your kids about this.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
I'm sure you
you.
have other business, so I don't want to hold up any more time. Thank you so much for having me.
Very
Thank you for
informative.
coming. We really appreciate it. It's been a real delight having Challenge Success support our school at the high school here at Weston. We really enjoyed the programming. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions, or are we gonna? All right. All right. Thank you again,
All right, we'll
Dr.
see you
Wiley.
tonight.
Have a great
Thank you.
day. See
You too.
Thank you. All right, I feel like I'm not ready. I enjoyed that presentation. I gotta get my head back into the
Minutes.
PCO,
Thank you.
general meeting agenda.
Do we have enough for a vote?
I think we need 6, so, and we
Yeah.
have 2 online,
Oh, we do have time.
and we have, when Megan comes back, she's a board member, is a teacher, so as a principal, so we'll have enough.
And you're leaving at 10:30.
Yes, so I'm going to, I think I'll pop you to the front of the agenda. Okay, all right. We have a couple things to get through. All right, well, welcome again. Thank you for coming, and we're going to jump right in. officer reports. Here representing Tammy Roberts, our president, and we'll be covering a couple of the topics she was going to go through today. There have been copies of our bylaws passed around, and they were updated and voted on at our executive board meeting, our May executive board meeting, and there's just a couple of changes. There's some grammatical corrections throughout the document. Things that are being changed are in red, and you can see them there. Some is just to correct language. There are two big things that were changed, somewhat big. There's the introduction of an alumni membership category for the Weston High School PTO. There's a zero cost for membership. The concept is to increase the engagement with our community, that the membership will be available to folks who no longer have students in Weston High School who still wish to be members of the community, in good standing, who wish to join as members, hoping this will increase engagement and outreach to the community who still wish to help out Weston High School, whether it's with volunteerism or donations or just general awareness of what's happening at the high school. So that's a new category of membership. That's included in the bylaws. Then let's see, there was just a small tweak to the, there's a section in the bylaws that the executive board is permitted to do a philanthropy grant up to $500 at a time for up to $3,500 annually. There had been a language change a couple of years ago when the BOE changed their acceptance policy. We corrected it, but it wasn't necessary. We changed it to $499.99 because we misunderstood the wording of the BOE's acceptance policy. So now it's corrected to $500 again, and it's increasing from up to $3,000 a year to $3,500 a year. So those are the highlights of the changes. You know, some things are just alphabetizing the board roles, and I hope folks here have had a chance to take a look. We've added some wording in things like staff appreciation, chairperson, including some of the things that we focus on: paraprofessional recognition day, security, custodial, nurse appreciation day, just to highlight some of the things that are in practice here in some of the board roles. So with that being said, and having passed these around, they've been approved through our executive board. Let's know if there's a motion to, could we have a motion to approve the bylaws updates? Megan Burns. We have a second. Katie?
Either one, I don't care.
Okay.
Just trying to be helpful.
Okay. Okay, so we have Katie, a such second. So all those in favor? Do we have anyone opposed? Okay, motion to approve the bylaws updates has passed. Thank you very much. What else do we have? All right, with that being said,
I'm just pointing out, there's actually a little bit of a delay, but for the opposed hands went up, so I want to make sure that that was.
oh, okay.
There was just a little bit of
There's
delay.
a lag.
Yeah, I'm just pointing that out.
Oh my God, what a horrible pose in the background there. I put my screen on here. All right. Okie dokie. So just a quick few highlights. I want to say thank you to our staff appreciation chairs, Joad Masters and Carrie Schaefer, who knocked it out of the park as always last week at Teacher Appreciation Week. They're actually going on to extend the fund next week, or this week, actually. There's a teacher development day on Friday. It's a half day at school, and they're going to be coming in and putting on a lunch in a more relaxed setting once all the kids have left the building. They're going to be able to have a nice group meeting and have lunch. So thank you to our staff appreciation chairs and everybody who contributes help or financial donations towards staff appreciation. Is really, we're really grateful for that. It helps us really show our teachers and staff how very fond we are of them and appreciate all they do for our kids. So also want to say thank you to Irina, running our Bricks fundraiser. Would you like to, again, I'm going to turn over to Irina for a minute to talk about the Bricks fundraiser.
Yeah, a few things. First, I don't know if you've seen, I sent out on Facebook, I sent out an email, encourage parents to buy bricks for the teachers' appreciations as well. And I think it's a good idea for graduating classes, and it doesn't have to be high school, it can be any school. And if you just want to support me, I know we talk to each other, just please do. I know it's new, but I talked to a few parents and they said, okay, yeah, sounds like a good idea. And I don't know if it's ever been suggested before, but I did it this year and I don't know, again, I will see at the end of the year if anyone did that or not based on when I will see the order of the bricks. And the second thing is, I also watched it. We have 3 administrators retiring this year. I sent out email. I think you saw that email of like a little bit of a feedback. If you think it's a good idea, and are we going to get those bricks for because one parent got back to me about Patty. She wants to get her break. I know that PTO got back to me about Lisa and Dan. So do we need any kind of approval or how are we going forward with that?
In the past, we could always include in our PTO budget a brick for Weston High School retirees. So if somebody's retiring who's currently at Weston High School, but because we have Dan Zook and Patty Falber retiring, and most of us have been through the district, maybe it would be a good idea as to, I don't know if we have to, but do a vote here today just to approve the purchase of bricks for administrators, just so we can go ahead and do it.
Each PTO was going to do their individual schools.
Yeah,
Okay.
they also got back to me about West PTO and middle school PTO. They said they're going to do this, and actually one parent want to do for Patty. I don't know what we do for Lisa. And also, my another question would be, if we use PTO funds, what will be the price for it? Will it be
What would be the price?
Purchase price or the fundraising price?
It would be, if we're doing it, it would be the purchase price. We're not going to mark it up for our organization to purchase it. It's honor.
Well, it's the money coming from, like, even if they come, the money is coming from West PTO or like Western Middle School PTO purchase price.
I think that's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
And I believe the communication was that each school would do their individual person, and we could even approve it at the next meeting or this meeting because it's under the $500 threshold.
Yeah.
And for Lisa, who's going to funds for the superintendent?
And correct me if I'm wrong, I do think in that communication it was going to be a group, contribution, but we can just.
No one, I don't think, someone who mentioned it, no, it's been a little bit a while ago. I think someone said that It will, oh yeah, the Stephanie, she
Yeah, it was
said,
Stephanie from the PTO
Yeah,
president
she said
from,
be-
middle school.
because the budget for the dinner was
Understood.
approved, it can be included or something like that.
We had already approved funds.
The budget for the
Oh, right.
dinner. Oh, right,
Which is- yeah.
obviously. And the brick for us to purchase through the company is not exceptionally pricey, so, I
Yeah,
think-
it's just like.
And like I said, we
it's
can
not
approve that at
yeah,
this, our next meeting, about lunching or
yeah.
add it to it. It's on the agenda for this one, but. Next one.
I kind of view the bricks for retirees at Weston High School as sort of built in and not requiring a serious vote.
Right.
It's sort of part of the
Yeah.
bricks program.
It's not
We've
pre-approved.
always
Okay,
intended to buy bricks for retirees, and with Lisa's brick,
So there's a
she was
fund already
principal
for
here,
that.
and I consider her a retiree of Weston High School as much as the entire district, so I think, I
Yeah.
don't know if we need to really
yeah, there's funding for
But
it.
vote it, you know.
Okay,
Yeah.
as long as, I
Yeah.
just wanted to discuss it with you. I
No, I-
didn't
Yes.
wanna
the funding
appreciate
is
that.
decide. And then I need to decide on a tax for the bricks, and I know that Lisa's been here for 40 years in the school district. Who can give you this information? And about Patty, I know that there's like, she started as a substitute teacher and grew into yeah, going to the principal. And I just,
Are we limited to 18 characters, or can we spend more and get more characters?
We can get up to 21.
21.
Should I go by
Excuse me.
myself, or should I create and we can approve it and send it out to everyone
I
and it will be
think
approved?
If you could come up with the proposed wording,
Yeah,
and then share it to Tammy, we can share it at an exec
Mhm.
meeting, or an exec
Email.
email, and just
Email,
say,
We could do it offline.
Yeah.
how's everybody feel?
An email
about this?
session for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
and thank you so much.
that was fun. Of course.
Okie dokie,
Do you want to skip ahead to Laura?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to skip ahead to Laura? I know she'll-
Yes, so we have, yeah, I'm just looking to see where I'm gonna circle back to next, but, thank you for that, and we're going to move to our philanthropy chairperson, Laura Schlossberg, who, has, I believe, two requests that have passed through our executive board, and we would like to now present to our general board consideration.
Thank you. And I apologize for my voice. I guess I had a little bit of a pollen happening. Hope you can hear me, well, or understand me. These requests, I think they dovetail so nicely with, with project, challenge success, I should say, with everything we've learned. The first request is from, the math lab, but they tie in together. The other request is from the literacy lab. The math lab request is basically to, it's in line with the flexible seating concept and creating a really nice space for the students to, foster engagement and participation and a sense of belonging, along with their environment too. So, so the teacher is requesting items for flexible seating, so different chairs, some with wheels, ottomans. Another part of the request is round tables that have the dry erase board and the table, so they could work at the table. She also requested some of these like floor rocking chairs, and it's all very nice and modern and inviting for the students, creating that space for them. A lot of the students who come here are coming for extra help in math, and it will create a space for them that they will feel comfortable in and foster their learning and their engagement. The amount of the request was specifically $2,571.30. So we wanted to approve it up to $2,600. So first, I want to just ask if anybody has any questions.
So is this going to be similar to the Spanish
Yes.
room where multiple teachers can utilize this
Sorry.
room?
multiple
So
students.
this
can-
is
yes.
the math lab and the literacy. I'll speak to like
Yeah.
programmatically so
Okay.
folks can understand the ask. So the literacy lab and the math lab in previous years has been staffed by multiple teachers throughout the day. Heading into the 25-26 school year, we have turned those positions into a single teacher that is now running and in charge of the math lab, and a math teacher who's now been appointed. There was a process, but appointed into that position to run that lab. And so throughout the course of the 8-period schedule, they'll, be there, whether sometimes it's to push into classes, also for kids to be assigned to the math lab and students to access the math lab for extra help. So I just took Laura over to those spaces actually. Right now, there are 3 round cafeterias in each of cafeteria tables in each of those spaces.
Much nicer.
They're a little dull. It's not the most welcoming environment. And so now that the teachers are really owning that space, right? And we kind of have what kind of a director of the learning and extra help and support that goes on in the spaces. They are trying to craft a space that is welcoming and inviting and allows for like the multiple purposes that each of those labs will serve for students accessing extra help or support in those areas.
Right. Yeah, it's all built in with the furniture. I mean,
Yeah.
nice colors, inviting colors, and the ottomans are comfortable, and the rock or chairs on the floor.
Yeah.
So would be much a significant improvement from what it is now, because it's just very staid and just a round table with chairs. So this gives them a lot of flexibility within the space, and I think just makes it really inviting and communicates to the students that we care about the space, because we care about them in the space.
And there are options for collaborative like areas as well as independent areas when we think about like the whiteboard tables, for problem solving, and then those kind of more floor-based rockers that the kids like for more independent.
Yeah, there's also a
work
sit
things.
stand whiteboard desk on
Yeah.
wheels. The chairs are on wheels and they can move around and connect. So it is very similar to the Spanish room. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah. Thoughts or questions or comments? So if I could make a motion to approve for the math lab up to $2,600 for the purchase of furnishings. If I could get that.
I'm always happy to do her.
Thank you.
I'll do
And a
second.
second, yeah, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you, motion passes. And then the literacy lab is also in the library. It's another space that right now looks, just a bunch of round tables. And this request, it is for, different furniture, flexible seating and all that, but it also includes, I should just read you what Mrs. O'Keefe wrote, because she's the writer.
She is a good writer.
So it's more about also the literacy magazine. So it's a lot of purchasing for those particular items. She wrote, the funds would enable us to purchase flexible and comfortable seating, as well as organizational and storage mechanisms to showcase and organize the print and digital literacy resources. So they're asking for this thermal binding machine. It's a portable laminator, and that allows the materials to be reusable, and they can create handouts for the as resources for the individual and students and groups of students. Because they have a student-run club, it's the Filament, and that produces a professional quality editions of their arts and literary magazine. She says, featuring the talent and hard work of our students. So I love that they can take real ownership of their club. So a lot of the items include the presentation binders, the laminating machine, excuse me, the laminating covers, the thermal binding machine, etc. Then she also has the nice ottomans for the flexible seating, the different chairs, the black pillows for desks, for computers, sorry, and different types of stools and chairs. Excuse me. So any questions or comments on this? will create, I think, a much more inviting and engaging space for our students and want to be there as much as feel the need to go there.
Mhm.
Questions? Comments? Okay. Thank you. So if I could get a motion, make a motion to approve, the request is in the amount of 2,000, sorry, wrong one. The request is in the amount of 2,515. So we are asking to approve up to 2,600 for the purchase of these items for the literacy lab. If I could get a first.
First.
And a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, motion passed. Thank you so much.
Can I just ask, I was looking down who motion 1 and 2 were, so I can just share it with Mona.
Me,
Okay, yeah.
Lauren.
And
I was too.
second.
And you were number 2, okay.
Those are really good requests.
It's
Yeah,
really, it's gonna
Yeah.
change,
the vibe.
yes. thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when I saw where it is now versus all the beautiful items and options that they selected. I think it's going to be a space that the
Yeah.
kids will really appreciate
Mm-hmm.
being. And I always think it sends a good message when you care about your space as well. The environment's so important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the
They'll love
teachers
it.
doing
Teachers
this.
will love it.
Yes,
Yeah.
a lot of
Do you think those will be in place for the fall? I guess
I'm
we'll be able to do it
hoping.
over the
So.
summer.
We're gonna
mean,
order them. They could come before
like
the end of the
everything's pretty
school year,
available.
so yeah,
Wow,
it should be great.
that'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it looked like.
It's like, we're kind of launching it with the new teachers in there, taking ownership of the
Mhm.
space.
Yeah.
So the goal is that that's the way we're starting.
New management.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
fun.
it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I really do appreciate the teachers putting
Yes.
thought and time into this and selecting all the items and
Absolutely.
mapping it out and carving it out and envisioning it. So, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to move on through the agenda. We've got our Secretary Mona Roberts and our Treasurer Tammy Roberts will be presenting both of their items for approval at our next meeting in June for approval. So we've already very gladly met with Laura on our agenda, and we're going to move on to Megan Canetta, our principal, and for any reports she has for us at the PTO.
So we are fast and furious to the end of the school year. There's lots going on. We have our final schedule. I've talked about it a couple times. The final schedule is now in our week ahead. Gets sent out every Sunday. So we have tweaked our final schedule from the midterm. So those review days that we inserted, we've now made them half days. So the students go over their first 4 classes of the day. And then students can have an early release. We have buses for the early release. And then they also have the typical like 2:30 bus as well. Teachers are available the second half of the day for what we're calling flex time. So students can stay and get extra help. We took some feedback from kids and teachers where those longer sessions, I think they were 80-minute sessions around the time of midterms. It was a long period for review, and kids also felt like they wanted to be able to access the specific teacher that they wanted help
Makes
in and
sense.
to kind of be able to self-select, which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So taking that feedback, we designed those review days to take that feedback essentially. So we're happy to see that supported, and we can get the buses in line and all that stuff that's happening. We are continuing to make progress on cell phones. More and more I'm reading, listening, watching the debates over cell phones. And the reality is that kids are too attached to their phones, and quite frankly, so are the adults. Our hope is that as we proceed through these tiers of cell phone distancing, that students are learning with kind of each passing event that they do feel some relief from parting with their phones. when we did the Away for a Day voluntary thing last Thursday, we're doing another one this Thursday. Kids, at the end of the day, we had 107 students turn their phones in, we did not expect to get that many. When you think about the number of students who are also taking AP testing and kind of weren't involved in like the fray of the day, to still have 107 students given, our lower kind of enrollment in the day or attendance that day, it was pretty impressive. And kids said it was hard, right? It's hard for them to be separated from their phone. And I think as I put in the week ahead, some of the feedback that we got was we need more clocks in the hallways, or, how can we post the schedule? So televisions are pretty inexpensive. We have some areas in the building where we had the super old, big, clunky TVs that we took out because they didn't work and we didn't use them and they weren't connected to the system. But how do we figure out the areas in the building where kids do need a visual to get their eyes on their schedule or clock, or how we're showing kids what the clubs and activities are that day, or what our after school sports are, or the upcoming show, or whatever the case may be. So they highlighted a couple things that they might need in order to more confidently give up their phone. And I think ultimately the goal is that we create an environment where kids can keep their phone away and create some distance. I know that the middle school has used the Yonder pouches. I will tell you, I don't know that I, think that is a necessity. That's why we're doing this work, really, to understand what are the limitations kids can put on themselves and what are the things that the adults have to help them with, right? And so that's why we're kind of doing, it's almost like a learning walk in cell phones over the next, 5 weeks or whatever we have left of school. So from Thursday, where it's another voluntary, the next couple of Fridays will be cell phone free Fridays, where we do not want to see the cell phones out during the school day. And we're going to look at how hard that is for kids, how many we're seeing in the hallways. And some of the suggestions have also been like, I'm going to use a really bad comparison, but the comparison has been to, I don't know about you, but when I was in high school, we had a smoking lounge. I think we all recognize that smoking was bad for us, and we still had a lounge for kids. So where are the areas that maybe we might identify in the building that could be like a safe place for kids to come if you need to check your phone? Like, we understand that high school kids have more responsibility for managing their day-to-day. My own children do, right? Like, if they have an orthodontist appointment that we knew we had to get at that time, if someone needs to cancel it, or a game gets rescheduled, or whatever the case may be, they are managing a lot, and more than I certainly did at their age. So we want to respect that for them too, and we want to respect that independence, but find a way that it is not a constant distraction for them. And the cell phone does replace their thinking, right? Like, they are in a class, they're involved, they're engaged, ideally, and then they leave, and that cell phone comes into play, and what impact is that having on their ability to retain? So those are some of the things that we're working on. And as I shared with Dr. Wiley being on the call, like, our focus next year will be on grading and assessment and some of those universal practices that we want to get feedback from kids and teachers and families in terms of the things that would really be helpful to kids.
I'm just wondering if they need like a fidget. As I'm sitting here watching these girls outside, they're walking around with the cell phones in their hands. And I'm wondering, when you take that physical, not even being on it, just like the smoking, right?
Yeah.
Just the physical aspect of it away, that's going to be a big gap.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's some sort of like
That's
fidget
a really
or
good point, like replacing
even like a
behaviors.
pen that they could, like, I mean, not to be
That'd be really annoying.
right, like something like, because that's they're gonna feel like naked.
They do, and what we've seen, like, because we did a visit to Wilton High School, and what you notice is they talk to each other more.
Yeah.
That's the behavior.
And so I think that, yes, will it be hard, right? And like that kind of tactile, they definitely have a tactile
Yes.
longing
Yes.
for their phone and holding something. And so, it's trying to reshape habits.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if there could be like a random time, like not random for you guys, but like according to the kids, it would be random, where on the loudspeaker, it's like, okay, cell phone break, you can bring your phones out and check. and then goes away, like, I don't know, like, then you would at least be like, I can check my, did my mom
Like weaning
send
them
me
off.
that? Yeah, or just it's like, you're gonna get a time or two during the day where it's.
Check in to see if an
Well, I
appointment's
mean,
been
and
rescheduled.
that's what
Yeah.
we have to evaluate.
Yeah.
Like, what is the purpose of Take 10, right? Is
Right.
that like, that's
Their
something that we
opportunity.
say,
Yeah.
that's one of the intentions of Take 10, if you need to do that, or you
Yeah.
wanna go get a snack, like, that's a time that you could take it. I'm not totally convinced that lunch is problematic, so I guess I have not wrapped my head around what's the right mode, and I know that there is a lot of conversation in the media and print and education that cell phones should be removed from schools.
Mhm.
And I think that's really easy to say
Mhm.
when you don't work day to day in a school.
Mhm.
And I just wonder about the utility of some of those rules,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
and I do think it's being politicized for better or worse. And so I think that we have to be careful, and we have to do what's right for our kids and what's right for Weston and what's right for Weston High School. And I think, to your point, Katie, like, what are the times like that we say, that 5 minutes in between class, it's like too much. Like, then you're on your phone, like, just talk to friends, get to class, like, let's have lighter moments in those 5-minute
Yeah.
passing times. But Take 10, like, yes, if you need to check your phone, you might have gotten a communication from an outside coach or a theater group or your parent or whatever, that your schedule could have changed. And maybe lunch is the next, period that you might be
Right.
able to do
Right.
that. But outside of that, like, let's try to really monitor our use and like really be aware of how we're using it. So more to come.
So I've been thinking a lot about it, and I hear it as well on radio, like that other school districts, they also try to do those cell phone free days in their schools. And I was just wondering, like, for me, I'm getting so tired of having the phone and computer in front of me during the workday. I'm happy to give it away, like, honestly. But the moment I put it away, then I check it in 1 hour and I have like text messages. I'm scared that I might miss something, like, especially when kids are not at home, I have to be like, check it all the time. But honestly, I hate it. I wish I didn't have that one. And I just think that how their generation feels about it, because they grew up with all these phones and social media, and this could be also something to think about when we think of how we structure it. They take away the phones, and I like the idea of the TVs, but what I would include would be something like, let's go home, urgent message, or something that it pops up on TV, like some kind of messaging from, like we had this messenger for the Weston class, I don't remember any longer, where parents can send a message to school if they need to take a kid to a doctor's appointment, or it was a communication through the messenger. And if it can somehow pop up on those TVs.
For individual students?
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that would be a violation of students' privacy.
Not with the message, but some kind of a, like, reminder, you need to check your phone, like, the reason to check
Right,
your phone.
I think
I'm sure
that-
they don't need to do it every day, those 10 or 5 minutes that you discussed.
Right, I
It's
think
only
that
some days.
the practice has always been that if a student needs an early dismissal, right, and parents can call the office, so those, and I think that that's what we need to default to. I will give you the example. My phone was away for the day. I had to have a conversation with my own children to say, my phone is away for the day. If there is an emergency, here's what I consider an emergency. You're bleeding and you cannot get it to stop, right? Like, right? Someone's going to the emergency room. Like, these are, like, this is my level of what I consider an emergency. Beyond that, it can wait until 2:30, right? So if there's you call the school, here's my number, you have my email. And in conversations with other schools that have done this, the teachers and the staff and the administrators have had to have those conversations with family. Some of the other things that I've also seen is that people put in a away message on their email, and it could say, I am trying to be present in the school building, right? So I may not return your emails. Thank you so much. I'm happy to return your email in the next 24 to 48 hours. If it is an emergency, please call the main office. So I think we kind of as a culture have to figure out what are the strategies that we want to employ, and to educate the community to say, you know, sometimes your emergency is not our emergency, right? And we understand like there is a pace in society right now. So what are the efforts that we can make to help slow things down so that kids don't feel like that everything is urgent, and that we can take the time to make good and healthy decisions.
I was just gonna say, I think it's great. I'm hearing you, so you put your phone away, and I think that will be key for the students to see that the teachers, staff, and administration are adhering to the same standards that the students are being asked to, because they will feel opinionated about it if they see otherwise.
And it's also just triggering.
Yeah.
You see somebody that's
triggered. And there has to also be a recognition that we are adults with greater responsibilities, right? And I think that sometimes, yes, we value the voices of students. Yes, we know that they are independent. Yes, we know that they are aging into adulthood. And the reality is they do not have children in daycare, right? They do not have aging parents that they are taking care of and responsible for. So there's an understanding that we are not, like, I'm not going to walk around with my phone, right? And I didn't turn my phone in. Jen Herford had my phone with my passcode, and I said, just keep an eye on this, because I am responsible for 700 kids and 100 adults in this building if there's an emergency. So what are the things that we can do to send a message that we're trying to create some distance, and these still are tools that as adults that we are kind of responsible to in some way.
Absolutely.
I think because as adults, we have more responsibilities and more work. We do in general spend less time on the phone because, for example, I have to drive and they sit next to me, and it's always like this. So they have more free time. I have to, all you listed, like all the responsibilities in cooking. They don't cook. Yeah, I do it. And while I do it, I see them in front of the computers or their phones. And they, just pointing to them that, and I talk to my kids, I'm just like, look at me, like, I don't have as much time. I check my social media 15 minutes before I go to bed. And sometimes in the morning just to check the news, international news. But they have so much more free time, and their hands are free to just grab that phone and be on TikTok for
hours. They say they're stressed, and they say that exams stress them out, and they say that they procrastinate, they struggle with time management. So when we look at the data, right, this is a response to some of the things that students are saying they're having a hard time with. So let us, like, these are incremental steps. We're going to do some things around engagement. We're going to do some things around grading and assessment. And there are some things that we can help them and teach them to form better habits. Because the phone is a procrastinator tool.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like they get on
one of
it
my
and all of
favorite.
this. And I ask them, like I've talked to kids, I'm like, how many of you have gotten on your phone and all of a sudden 2 hours of your life are gone?
Yeah.
And universally, they have all had those moments, you know, sometimes daily, if not for sure weekly.
And how about this, hey Siri or hey Alexa, how will be 8 multiplied by 12 or something all the time? Or whatever they need information, it's always like, hey Siri, what is this and that? They don't even think much because everything is out there.
But I think that they are thinking about thinking when they do ask those questions. I think that's what we have to, that is not going away, right? Like AI is not going away. The things that AI is going to be able to do for them is not going away. So how do we get them to think authentically and creatively while allowing AI to enhance their own ideas? Not that it's helping them to cheat, you know, it's happening too, but how are they using these tools appropriately? Because the research and data out there also tells us that being able to use AI effectively and with integrity is going to be essential in their future jobs, regardless of what they're doing. Right.
So,
so that's pretty much it. I have to go do an observation in the classroom.
Yes.
If that's okay.
Do we need
and you're
for
gonna lose
vote?
me too, so do you need anything else?
I'm
Okay.
going to
Vote on
present
that?
the slate for
Okay.
next year,
5,
so
6,
Do you need
7.
me?
We have 7.
Yeah, we have 7 with Megan gone, then we're.
Okay.
we're
I'm leaving at
done.
10:30, but I could wait. I have time. If you need.
I can probably do this in 4 minutes. So, are you
You
good?
could do
Yeah.
for 4 minutes. I can hang tight for 4 minutes.
Okay. All right. As the past president and part of my role as past president on the board is to be the nomination committee chairperson for next year's slate for 2025, 2026. I passed around the room our proposed slate for next year. And I'd like to start off with presenting it. Then I'll open the floor for any nominations from the floor. And this slate will be posted online, shared in our newsletter, and will be voted officially in our last meeting of the year. It'll be put to a vote in our June meeting. So with that being said, I'm going to start from the top of the slate and read all of our incoming officers and chairpeople. The top of the slate, we have our incoming president proposed, Laura Schlossberg, who is our current philanthropy chairperson, currently vice president, secretary, open. We will be working on that in the next coming days and weeks prior to the June meeting. Treasurer, Tammy Roberts, Board of Ed Rep, Alana Thompson, communications chairperson, Francesca LaRossi. Philanthropy will be Jawad Masters. Our sped liaison, again, will be returning Katie Heron Piazza. And webmaster returning, thank you everybody returning, Yati Patel. Past president, naturally, will be Tammy Roberts. And 12th grade reps for next year will be Tammy Roberts. We have an open position. Then we have Marakat Mazokas and Lauren Carter. 11th grade reps, we have Karen Hine and Sully Goodall. We have 2 open positions in the class of 2027. Class of 2028, 10th grade class reps, we have Alana Thompson, Danielle Ballner, and Amanda Plotkin. We have 1 open role there. And incoming 9th grade parent reps, we have Julie Kaufman, Mindy Fierro, Sherry Lowe, and Kara Matty. Brooks fundraiser, we have Irina, Echo, can you pronounce this? Thank you, I apologize. And thank you for coming back. And for our bylaws chairperson, we'll have Rebecca Solano. College test prep will be Stephanie Akers. Election day bake sale, we have Tia Gilmartin. Membership chairperson will be Livia Regaria. We'll be filling the Memorial Day race chairs after this year's 5K. New family liaison, online bake sale are both open. We're still looking for members for those roles. Staff appreciation co-chair, we have 1. We'd love another to join us. We have Amanda Plotkin, and exam refreshments chairperson will be Jennifer Bernheim. That's the first official time we've got somebody in that new role, which we're very excited. The exam refreshments chair, the exam refreshments will continue. So with that being said, I'm going to pause and open the floor to any nominations for these positions or the open positions. Does anyone wish to nominate an individual for any of the officer or board positions? All right, hearing no nominations from the floor, I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the slate as presented. Could we have a motion? I'm looking for a first and a second.
Go first.
Okay,
I'll go second on that.
excellent. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank you,
to
Laura.
everybody who's coming to
Just
join
have
the
a
board next
question.
year.
Are you anticipating the merchandise chairperson having a,
We can pop that on there.
Pop
I
on
don't
here, or-
know if it made it onto the,
oh, okay,
Web.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, I'm sorry. I-
No worries.
This is an appointment meeting.
Oh, boy. Thank you for
Can't get that
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice
And
day.
congratulations. All right, I'm gonna circle back to the agenda. I think next up, we have our special ed liaison, Katie.
I don't have anything to share.
All right, no worries. That's all right.
Just, keep your eyes on social media. That's all. There's announcements and stuff, but
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries.
And I'll just make another plug for the end of year luncheon on Friday, February 6th. Invites will be going out this week now that we have our slate all confirmed. So pay attention to your email.
right.
Awesome. Anything else as VP to report?
That's it.
Awesome.
That's our end
That's
of,
plenty.
that's yeah, that's our winding up,
Awesome.
winding down.
And for those of you, all the new folks on the slate, definitely plan on coming to the luncheon. It's a great time. And
Please do.
we're looking forward to meeting everybody there. Class reps, I don't have any reports to share from 9th or 10th grade on their behalf. 11th grade parent reps, we have, I have had a chat with both Tammy and Lauren. I know they're working on their flamingo fundraiser. You may have seen some folks getting flocked. I believe you can still book a flocking, but it's been a lot of fun, and I know they're enjoying working on that. They will be preparing to provide chaperones for the PGE. That's their next big thing. The post-graduation event, they provide the 11th grade parent reps, coordinate a team of chaperones for the graduation event for the 12th graders, future soon-to-be graduates in a few weeks. And they also do the refreshments after the ceremony, the graduation ceremony, which is just a bit of something for the folks, the family, and attendees of the graduation to get a little hydration and maybe a little something sweet and something just to keep their energy going after the exciting graduation. And I'm saying that because I was there last year. I have 2 daughters back to back, and so graduation was great last year. It was a sunny, beautiful day, and the refreshments that were put on were very much appreciated. So next up, we have our 12th grade parent rep group.
Yep. So we're just finalizing our PGE, and like that invite or that fundraiser, I guess it is, will go out hopefully by the end of this week as well. We're going to do an early bird special. So from now until we're thinking June 1st, will be a discounted price. And then after that, the price is going to increase through graduation, which is the 13th. The 13th, June 13th.
I thought you said 15th.
Oh,
I'm
no.
sorry. I'm like,
June 13th, Friday the 13th.
yes.
I know Principal Canetta has been sending a lot of communication regarding the Six Flags, and I know they're treating these seniors to a breakfast tomorrow as it's their last pact. So there's a lot of fun stuff happening end of year. And then, as we all know, last day is Friday, half day Friday, last day for seniors, and then they'll be going on their internships. So busy, as well as prom. I mean,
Prom's on Friday.
prom's on Friday.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff happening. Busy.
A lot going on for our seniors.
Lots going on.
And the parents of the seniors.
And the parents.
It's a lot going on. Alrighty, I think there's just a few things on the bottom, upcoming dates I just want to touch on quickly. The Weston 5K road race is happening. It's just, it's on May 24th, today's the 13th. It's speeding up. It's gonna be here any minute. We have lots of registrations. There's over 500 folks already registered for the 5K, which is great. We encourage everybody to please do register early. Last year we broke records. We had 888 registrants for the race. That's the highest we've ever had. I think we're on track to beat that this year, already in the high 500s, which is huge. And the other thing, if you are inclined, we would be so appreciative if you could volunteer to help on race day. More hands, lighter work for everyone. We need folks to help with registration. We need people to be floaters, people to man the water tables. There's a sign-up genius that's been shared on the newsletter, so please take a look there. I can also post on our website later, so it's easy to see. It's a great morning. It's one of my favorite days in Weston. The whole weekend is a fabulous weekend, but despite getting up really, really early to volunteer at the 5K the past few years, I've absolutely loved it. It's a great, invigorating, spirited morning, and whether you run it or help it, you run it or you run it and facilitate it, it's a great morning, and we'd be so delighted if any of you could please come give us a hand. It is our biggest and it's our signature fundraiser at Weston High School. So we do appreciate it's a holiday weekend, and we appreciate everybody who comes out to help year after year. So I think I've covered all the points I want to touch on with that, and we talked about the bricks and end of year luncheon at the bottom of the agenda. Those are a few of the key things. So does anybody have any questions or anything they would like to bring up before we conclude our meeting? All right, folks. Well, that wraps it up. I'm very appreciative of everybody joining today, and thanks for your time. Oh, and one more thing I just want to say, I forgot. I just wanted to say thank you to the Community Cup, who always supplies our coffee and refreshments. They do a wonderful job delivering it, and we're so proud of our relationship with the Community Cup team for making this coffee service available to us and during the school year here in the building for the teachers. So thank you to them for that. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much for joining our May 2025 Weston High School PTO General Board meeting. Have a great rest of the day, and see you at the June meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.